Yeah, hi everybody. Thanks for joining us, and we're gonna go through some intros here. My name is Rich Lawson. I'm an associate director of technology with Evolving Web. We're a full-service digital agency, and we're also organizer of the event or Evolve Digital event series that we're all at here today. I'm really excited not only to be up here speaking to all of you as one of the speakers on the talk. I'm going to be focusing a little bit on Drupal CMS, but I also get to introduce my co-presenter here, Matt Glaman.
Yes.
Yep. And Matt is a principal software engineer at Acquia, and he's a very prominent member of the Drupal community. He has over a decade of experience in web development, and he's the author of several different books. A couple of examples are Drupal Development Cookbook and the Drupal 10 Development Cookbook. So both of these books provide a guide to building and customizing Drupal sites, so they're really good. You want to check those out. During our talk, Matt is going to be focusing more on Drupal Canvas. You heard him talking a little bit about AI, and that there will be some of that involved. Since there isn't a release of the 1.0 version of Drupal Canvas yet, everyone would tell you that it's too dangerous to run that in production, right? Like, don't do that. Not a good idea. But Matt has been running it in production as he continues working on it ever since it was called Experience Builder 7 months ago. Not only is he still here to tell the tale, but you can see, look, he's got a smile on his face, so that's really great. So everybody, please join me in welcoming Matt Glaman to Evolve Digital. So yeah, this is us.
Did you study already?
Yeah. Mm-hmm.
Okay.
Mm-hmm.
All right, I'm gonna just do a quick plug. So Acquia recently launched Acquia Source, which is a software as a service powered by Drupal CMS, and which has Drupal Canvas in it and is helping fund a lot of that development. So if you are looking for a managed Drupal instance, Acquia Source has got your back.
All right, and then a little bit more on Evolving Web. Not only do we specialize in Drupal, but we're also running training programs and have trained thousands of Drupalists, and we're even part of the Drupal CMS leadership team. All of our projects are strategy-driven, and we work with world-class organizations and public institutions, and you can see some of the logos there. I'm going to start by describing and showing you some of the powerful capabilities of Drupal CMS, which has a brand new 2.0 version releasing at the beginning of the year. Then Matt will introduce you to Drupal Canvas and demonstrate a new, much more visual and streamlined way to create site content. Next, we'll focus on the future and show you what's coming up on the roadmap for both Drupal CMS and Drupal Canvas. And then Matt will wrap up by giving you some details on how to get started with Drupal CMS and Drupal Canvas. And we'll have some time for questions at the end for sure. So let's start out by diving into Drupal CMS. Drupal CMS 1.0 was released on January 15th of this year. It was rapidly developed by the people who made Drupal and is built on top of Drupal core. A large team made up of many organizations and individual contributors have worked on Drupal CMS, and the product vision is led by Dries Buytaert, the founder of Drupal. So it's open source and it's Drupal, but more importantly, it's really easy to use. In this quote, you can see that Dries, his stated vision for Drupal CMS, which was originally called Drupal Starshot when it was in development. He wanted Drupal CMS to set the standard for no-code site building, so that everybody could build a site without having to constantly consistently rely on developers. As we continue, we'll see accomplishments that closely align with this vision for Drupal CMS. But first, let's take a little bit of a step back. You might be wondering why create a new CMS. For years, Drupal end users have talked about how powerful Drupal is for experts, and once you know it, you love it. But it's hard for newcomers to learn, and it isn't easy to onboard content editors and marketers. Marketing teams and content editors want a CMS that's flexible, which is what Drupal provides and promises, but they also want a more user-friendly, out-of-the-box experience. What you'll see today focuses on what makes Drupal CMS fun to use and how much faster it is to get the type of content that you need. Historically, with Drupal core, you can build a complete site, but you need the expertise to know what modules and which checkboxes to check to get the site launched and running. And there are so many steps to setting it up as a CMS that you can, pass off to the content editors on your team. With Drupal CMS, you can build the exact same finished site that you can build with Drupal core, and that's because Drupal CMS includes all of Drupal core. You're starting with the same foundation. But what you get is a product that's packaged in a way that makes it easy for you to set up your website. And you also get a lot of extra features, and all of those are included through the different modules and configurations just right out of the box, with different content types and smart defaults that align your website with the best practices that are out there in terms of things like accessibility and SEO. The features that Drupal CMS adds are those that most websites will need. So it's been, specifically the different features have been selected in such a way because a large majority of sites and people are going to need them. So how does Drupal CMS provide those smart defaults? It includes something called recipes. A recipe is essentially a set of configuration instructions that can be automatically applied with little or no user input and no additional coding. The Drupal CMS installer automatically applies a number of different recipes behind the scenes, and we're going to see a little bit more about that later. When we look at the recipes included here, you can see that they target fundamental features that websites need. These are the ones that are being automatically applied. A site should protect user privacy, it should combat spam, and it should make sure that SEO best practices are followed and do things like, make sure that remote video can play. A number of the recipes that you see here extend functionality provided by the automated recipes even further. For example, SEO Tools extends the SEO Basic recipe so that you can take meta tags, your sitemap, and your robots.txt file and manage it. Similarly, the Google Analytics recipe, which we're going to talk a little bit more about later, extends Privacy Basic. In other cases, like with AI Assistant that you see there, you get entirely new functionality. And so it provides you with an assistant that you can use to help you build your site. I'm going to show you how easy it is to install the Google Analytics recipe as an example. It integrates with the very popular Google Tag module and provides an easy way for marketers to add Google Tag Manager to their site. I'm going to show you how it adds a consent banner through its integration with the privacy recipe, and also updates the code on the page with GTM tracking, and it adds those sensible defaults that we've been talking about too. So you can see here that I just installed Drupal CMS, and you can see down at the bottom right-hand corner here that there is no privacy consent banner. So what we're going to do is we're going to use the recommended add-ons to get that Google Analytics recipe. We're going to go ahead and install it and put in a fake tag ID. And once we've got that done, we can go back to the homepage, and you'll see that privacy consent banner down here. We're going to go ahead and accept it. And then when we go into the inspector, we can basically see where it's adding the GTM info with that fake ID that I put in. And then if you were to go a little bit later, also for like no script, it also includes it down there. So it's basically applying all of that for you automatically. And then what we can do is we can take a look real quick behind the scenes a little bit with Google Tag. You can basically change your ID if you need to. But my point in showing this to you is that you don't need to know anything about the back end of Drupal. It handles that for you automatically. It's basically blocking that banner and the Google Tag ID from being displayed and being on those pages. So with Drupal CMS, we've talked quite a bit about how you can get started quickly with its recipes. If you think about the example that you saw at the end of the demo, you don't need to know anything about Drupal, like I said, to block the tracking and not have it appear on those admin pages. It takes care of that for you. And once it's ready, once you're ready, you can go beyond that if you'd like. So if you look down here, for example, as a marketer, you may not know, as much about Drupal, but you might want to be able to add these custom dimensions and metrics. So you can go back to where I was before and kind of, grow with the system and make these adjustments as you'd like, to where you can add these custom parameters. So there is the ability to add more recipes. So you can see some links here to documentation. The recipes cookbook and also Packagist has both HTML and JSON available. And so we're going to see just a quick little, just showing these starter recipes that you can use when you're first ramping up a site. There's also functionality specific recipes like these events recurring where, you can add more functionality, as well as, I'll quickly show you what it looks like if you go over to packages to where you can see, one thing that's nice about the packages is you can see how often the recipes have been downloaded, and if they've been starred. And then if you do need the JSON, that is also available to check out. And you can also create your own recipes too if you're like working at an agency or, if you're working at an institution that has a lot of, where you're building a lot of sites, multi-site type, platform. Next, I'm going to show you AI image alt text. You can use Drupal CMS. You can use this to help you with accessibility, to automatically populate and have some human review of alt text for your images. So what I'm going to do is show you installing and configuring 2 modules with Project Browser, which is a new feature, and also configuring the modules using local AI, and then wrap up with just kind of seeing how this works in terms of an image that I uploaded and having it automatically apply. So in this demo, again, we're at the dashboard right after installing Drupal CMS, and I'm going to go in and browse modules this time. And I'm searching for a provider. You can see OpenAI and Anthropic is there just out of the box, but I'm going to use Ollama so that I can use AI that is local. And once I get that installed, I can go ahead and configure it. And I'm running DDev locally, so I'm just basically getting that quickly configured so I can run this for you. There is a little error message that applies at first, so I just reapplied the settings so you could see everything was working. And then what we're going to do is we're going to search for the AI image alt text module and get that installed as well. And once that is installed, we're going to configure that, and you'll see how simple that is. Up at the top there, if you want to change your alt text generation prompt, you can. But the important thing to do is to pick your model that you want to use. So I picked a vision model. And then I also, from a UX perspective, it's great to have it auto-generate on upload. So I did that as well. Now I go to Media, Add Media, Image, and you can see here that I'm uploading a file, an image. There is our parrot again, or maybe a parrot. I think it's a parrot. But anyway, you can see here that I generated the alt text. It happened automatically, and then I generated it again because I wasn't quite happy with it. And then I removed, fence because it's actually on the wire above the fence, and so now I'm good with it. So we've seen how Drupal CMS already contains a lot of useful features, making it, easier to use Drupal overall. Now let's think a little bit and take a look at the next version. So it's already released in alpha. I'm going to be showing it to you here shortly. Drupal CMS 2.0 will arrive early in 2026, so it's not very far away. It's coming soon. And, in terms of Canvas, which we're going to talk more about here shortly, Matt's going to jump in with that. That'll be stable when Drupal CMS 2.0 launches. And effort is focused on the modules that are included in Drupal CMS and their readiness for Canvas right now. So that's a big part of the contribution, that is happening in development. So some modules that we all know and love, like Simple Sitemap and Linkit, are already compatible, but then there are others like Path Auto and Webform, which are important. They need a little bit of help. So there are great ways to contribute if you want to go ahead and take a look in the issue queue if you're a developer. Site templates, there are already 2 included in Drupal CMS 2.0. I'm going to show those to you here shortly. And more will be added. That's a big initiative. So the 2 you can see here on the screen. There's Starter, which basically is just the basics, right? You can implement your own design and build out whatever you need. Versus Byte, which is designed around the concept of having a SaaS product site. And so it's got, we're going to talk a little bit about the theme and the design system and things like that. But it provides, things like landing pages, a blog, and a newsletter sign up right out of the box for you, to where you could basically adjust that and get started right away. For AI, one of the initiatives in discussion is the implementation of an AI-based recipe for Drupal CMS 2.0. There is already an AI recipe available in 1.x of Drupal CMS, but that one's a little bit more focused on setting up an AI assistant for you. So there's not, basically there's more that could be included. So the concept is that in Drupal CMS 2.0, grouping smaller AI recipes together to give you some nice features and functionality already baked into the platform. And, you might be wondering, is that going to potentially create some friction, or is it going to stop the process because maybe people don't want to sign up for a provider account right away as they're going through that? So one of the things that's under discussion right now is allowing a little bit of anonymous AI usage to basically streamline that. So there's some interesting things going on with that right now. In terms of site templates, I wanted to focus on that a little bit more. This is a slide from one of Dries' presentations, and I think that most people that are involved with Drupal probably remember and are aware of distributions. They were created to provide an out-of-the-box solution to a lot of different common use cases. So some examples are Open Social, which is used to create digital spaces that provide out-of-the-box solutions for building online communities. And another example is Thunder, which is a distribution for professional publishing that includes a large number of publisher-centric modules and also some custom enhancements to make publishing easier. So site templates are essentially a new iteration of that concept. They contain recipes, which you can see at the top there, to automatically provide those smart features and defaults that I was mentioning earlier. There's also the theme, which is integrated in and leverages Drupal Canvas, which is really powerful. It uses all those capabilities. We'll get more on that soon. And, it's also to make sure that site creators are empowered to understand and start using the template right away. It also includes some demo content. So we'll be seeing that soon too. All right, so in this demo, this is the installation for Drupal CMS 2.0 Alpha 1. So you can do things like, change your language, or you can, for our purposes, we're going to be keeping it really simple and just use the default name for the site. And when we click on next, this is where we choose our site template. So I had mentioned about Starter and Byte before. So again, Starter is really basic. So for our purposes, it's not, like we would be applying a design and we would be building a theme, kind of building things up from scratch. So what we're going to do is we're actually going to take a look at using Byte to basically get a site installed and up and running. And we will see here in a moment that it is a very full, feature-rich site. And we're going to go ahead and kick off the process. We're going to go through this in real time, and I'll just give you a little bit more information as we're going through it. We're first going to create an account with the username and the password. So I just use my email there and put in a password. And so this is going through the installation process. You can see behind the scenes there that it's installing both modules and recipes. If you've gone through the Drupal or just the Drupal installation process, it would basically, do that, a lot of those things for you. But I think that, the new piece is really the recipes where, all of that is getting applied. And, once this gets wrapped up, we'll be taking a look at, all of what it provides and just kind of scroll through and see some of the different components and take a look at, a use case of basically kind of imagining that we're content editors. So here you see the new Mercury theme. There's also a design system that's been built for Drupal that uses this. So it's really good. And you can see that it's called Mercury there at the top. We're on a published homepage. And so what we're going to do is we will go ahead and basically edit this page, after we go through and make the components. So you have a hero at the top. You have some different cards for your blog. You've got this logo component, maybe, like a 50-50. These aren't the official names, but just kind of showing you the testimonials. This is actually the blog one. And then you have a CTA here at the bottom. And so, you've got all of those just right out of the box. And then if we edit the homepage here, you're seeing a little bit of canvas. I didn't want to steal Matt's thunder, so I kept it real lightweight. What we're going to do is basically the marketing team told us that we need to, make it to where the messaging is just shorter and just, packs a little bit more of a punch. So you can see that I edited the powerful solutions. I basically removed that. It updates in real time. So it's nice from that perspective. And then we want to, just add some bold to innovative and drive growth because it matches up with our brand. And, it's important that we're highlighting that because of the story that we're trying to tell on the homepage. So I go ahead and review the change. If I had more time, I would show you, you can actually edit multiple pages at once. So it allows you to review your work, and you can pick and choose what you want to publish. Then we go ahead and publish it, and it's ready to go. If we go back to the home page, you'll see the changes that are there that we've been previewing as we were making them. So yeah, it's really powerful, and we were able to work through all of that.
All right, so I'll take over from here and dive a little bit more into Drupal Canvas, the new faster way to edit. That little preview showed you that you can go and make those live changes. It's a no-code page building. I'm sure, I don't know if any of you use Layout Builder and remembering that you'd build blocks or build things and drag them on the page, and it kind of worked. And also, it's going to provide some new page design tools, and we'll go through those a bit. So again, this is a quick snapshot. We saw the preview, quick snapshot of the modern editor. So this was actually designed by designers who build landing pages. It wasn't built by backend developers, which if anybody's had a history with Drupal, you're like, oh, it's kind of great that they made that change. So on the left, you'll have like the layers. We can see all the different components, and then there's the form on the right for component data or the page data itself. But we're going to go through the basics. So that way, I don't know how familiar some of you are with Drupal Canvas, but this is going to go touch and build layers on layers so you have a great understanding of it. So in Canvas, or in Drupal, there's single directory components. They're a thing that Drupal made to try to do front-end stuff in a Drupal way. They just never had a UI or a way to use them. You can use them in Canvas. Blocks, and also the new thing in Canvas is the JavaScript code components. So there's these three different base sources of data that all become Canvas components, and which you can use and manipulate in place via the Canvas UI. So you think like blocks, you can only use with Layout Builder. SDCs had no way to be used. They had no UI. This kind of unifies everything into a more robust editing experience. One thing to know about components, and this is something that tripped up a lot of people, myself included, there are props and slots. Props are a way to define inputs. They have like a shape. It's like, is this a string or is this an image? And the slot, well, you put other components into slots. And that makes up the components when you're building your landing pages. So this is one of my favorite things in the Drupal history, how we had a node type called basic page. It was like the bane of my existence. I was like, why don't we just have a page? This is Drupal. It does modeling. So Canvas does provide a landing page for unstructured content for building your landing pages. That is actually what we looked at, that home page in the earlier demo. So in here, you can have the About Us page, where you just go there and your content editors type in text into their little text widget, and it's there on the page. One thing to notice in the upper right, and we saw it the preview, Canvas is always continuously saving and allowing you to schedule publishing. So whenever you make a change, it's like the autosave in the background, but it is not published on the live site. So you can go between like 50 different pages, make all those tweaks, and they're like, oh, shoot, you know what? Actually, I got to go change the homepage. I got that really important email. Go modify the homepage and publish that one change while you still have all your other work in progress. I think that's probably the biggest change. Drupal's been like, go save a new draft and then go somewhere else. And like, you would always lose your work as somebody who always hits the back button when writing blogs. One thing for building pages, there are patterns. So let's say you built this homepage, and then you're like, or a landing page, and then you got to build another one. There's like a gallery of components, like your sale price, something like that. You could right click and then convert that component into a pattern. So essentially a pattern is a component with its pre-configured props and anything in its slots. So if you have a composed card page, your pricing section, or like your newsletter sign up, you create as a pattern, new landing page, you just drag it over. And once you drag it over, it's not like they're linked. So you can go drag it over, then modify it too. So it can be like a good starting point. So that's where there's like design tools built in. So right now you already have your components, and your team can build these patterns. Like, okay, we have to compose a new landing page. They drag over these patterns and can tweak them as needed. And I think this is probably the feature that everybody's been waiting for, and was our biggest stable blocker, is content templates. Because when we landed pages, everybody's like, but what about my notes? What about our structured content? So Canvas is reinventing how you handle all templating your structured content. So in this example, we have a new template section on the left. And this is from the Byte starter kit. There is the blog post, and there's still a basic page content type. But you can see we have a full content template and a card. So full is like you go to that article and you see the full thing, or if you have a listing, you could template the card. So if you have like a featured articles, you can control that output if you use that card. When editing the template, so we saw previously for the props, you would type in everything you wanted, but with a template, you want to use the structured content. You want to use the data that's on your notes. So that's where we call them linking, and there's that little link icon next to the label. And once something's been linked, it tells you what field it is linked to. So here, I unlinked the published date. So when you click the link, it will show you the available fields. And one of the great parts, it does support references. So if you have tags, you can then reference through all the tags. There are like some nuances here, but this has been like the big feature. And this, if you have tried Drupal Canvas, and it's been a while, this did land around DrupalCon Vienna, I believe. And again, I want to drill in again the scheduled change publishing. The fact that just because you make one change somewhere else doesn't mean it has to ship. It goes for this as well. So you could have your content editors working on pages. You could have your site builders, whatever you want to call them now, working on content templates, and they don't step over each other's toes. There are some, of course, with concurrent editing, but this allows you to work on your site with multiple people at the same time in different areas, and then only choose what you want to ship out. Big thing with code components, and this is actually how Acquia Source runs. Acquia Source is leveraging code components because we don't want people to write backend code. It's meant to be a low-code software as a service. So, all right, I hate putting editors on a page because it's so hard, but that's kind of the only way to demonstrate this. So when you create a code component, you can actually write JSX. So under the hood, it is using React and Tailwind. So that way you don't need to even write CSS. You just use Tailwind classes because, love it or leave it, it is the main way that a lot of people are building interfaces. It is also the number one way to work with AI and building components due to the existing data that's out there. So you're able to define the props for your component in here. So recording, and we share out the slide deck. You can see it's much easier to read, but there's a text size prop name, and actually the React code reads that prop value and then maps the different Tailwind classes to adjust the text size. So now, like I said before, how SDCs are like a Drupal way to solve a front-end problem, but they're still very Drupal. Because you gotta write twig files and like YAML files and all this. You give this to a front-end developer, and they know how to go build. You give this to a marketer who knows some JavaScript, they know how to go build or find a way to go do that without hailing your R&D team. Again, in here, I'll drill home, schedule changes, right? You add a component, you can have it there basically in a quote unquote light draft state and wait to go publish your changes, or if you have to go update it. So you could have like one version and then you're going to go tweak it, but you don't want to quite make the design changes go live. You can import your other components. So in this case, I created a big text component, which uses the previous text one and hard codes the text size to be extra large. Because the marketing, somebody was like, I'm sick of always having to say extra large all the time for my text size. So it allows you to do composable components. And then this one, we have built in the Drupal API client, which is a JavaScript package for interacting with Drupal's JSON API. And when you use SWR hook, which tries to make it a more efficient fetch, it actually will show the data fetch in the bottom right. So as you're querying data from a remote source, you can preview the data so that way you can work with it in your code component. So in this case, I'm listing blog posts. So instead of building a view, which I can't template and I can't style because it's all Drupal goodness and twig, I could instead opt for a more dynamic component this way. I love this because about 8 years ago, I worked at an ed tech company. We built a SaaS for schools. And we did all this cool stuff, and then somebody's like, can I embed the WeatherBug iframe? And I was, now, if you get that request, you can write it in JavaScript and fetch it over the API instead of doing some iframes. There is the Canvas CLI, and this allows you to download the components from your Canvas site or from your Drupal site, allow you to scaffold them or upload them. So this means that you can give to React developers React code that they write. And then they can upload to the Drupal site. And now if they go into the editor, they can commit to a GitHub repo, and your GitHub repo runs a GitHub action and deploys it to your Drupal site. And they don't even know they're working with Drupal or a backend of that sort, and they can be fully isolated and do what they love, and then you can build the sites that you love. There's going to be more coming down the pipeline with this. This is actually something in my sprint for when I get back home, is to figure out the developer experience for front-end developers with Canvas CLI. So keep that underneath there. I think the big statement is that Drupal Canvas is a site builder. We've always talked about page builders in the past. And I was like, I know when there's like Pittsburgh, there's like some funny things about revamping Drupal's page building experience. This takes us beyond pages. And besides just like a node, like an article page that you template. Canvas provides global regions. So in the days, of yore, as we move forward with Drupal, most themes had like 12 regions. So I have my header, I have that subheader, I want my breadcrumbs here, I want the right bar, sidebar, and so on and so forth. But with Canvas, now you can have 2 global regions. And I think most people will be set. You can have your header and your footer. So patterns that I brought up are neat for composing pages, but like I said, they're not linked and they're on one page. So global region allows you to put in specific components, and then those will show up on every single page on your Drupal site. So you can have your header here, or you put in your main menu, your branding block, you can go into your footer and have that footer across the page. And now, instead of calling a developer, because they need to tweak that one menu link or adjust the year and the copyright, they can log in and do it themselves. Or you don't need to do some fancy code that just makes it auto-update. And again, hammering this home, everything is always saved. You can move around. You can continue to edit everywhere and decide to publish what you want when you want. And then I want to show off Drupal Canvas AI real quick. So I did speed this video up. In reality, it was 2.5 minutes. Part of that was the page being built once they got the, once they got the response from the AI agents. The other part was nobody wants to sit here and watch that stupid spinner go. There's the prompt, it goes in kind of quick. I prompted that I had an awesome text generator that's way better than LLMs, and please make it sound like a LinkedIn influencer. So that way I can sell my $10, $100, and $500 subscriptions. So that's not going to autoplay. Oh, I haven't set it up. How do we press it?
Here we go.
All right. So I'm going to go paste that in. And then when you have an AI provider configured, there'll be a button in the upper left. And then that opens chatbot. So it shows it's thinking, because there are about 4 different agents that it interacts with. There's an orchestrator, and then there's like metadata, a title, and a component builder. So it's talking to itself right now. At one point, it actually found that it had invalid data in the prop, so it fixed itself. That's what makes it agentic, right? The AI is reasoning with itself. And now it put all the components that were in my library onto the page. It put in a bunch of default content, as I'll scroll through. And as a preface, this is Acquia source running, because that's where I have my AI set up, but you can do this with the regular Drupal site as well, if you plug in your AI provider. And it created my 3-column subscription area, of all the different tiers I have, with the snarkiness of a LinkedIn influencer. Now, that page isn't something you're gonna.
Do you want me to play this?
Yeah, you can go on the next slide. Just go to
Oh, next one. Oh no. Yeah, use a clicker.
Oh, that didn't actually.
That doesn't clicker on that one either. Okay. Shoot.
No, it's not the clickers on that. Okay, well, we sort that out. So obviously you're not going to go to production with that page. You're not going to publish it, but you could scaffold a page quickly that way. There's one example that I could not squeeze in with the video, but it can write the code components for you also. So it can create your custom code components. And then there's extensions that can integrate with Drupal Canvas. Now, of course, since we're not stable yet, I only have one example, and that's the Acquia web governance module, which I helped write for Drupal Canvas. The difference with this, think of like Yoast SEO. Think of like Yoast SEO or any other accessibility tool where you'd have to go in and you'd edit your node, and there might be like a weird button in the sidebar, and it does all this stuff, and or maybe you got to save a draft and scan a draft. Whoa. But now you can work on your page live, your landing page, any of that. This takes into account your header and footer, where it will scan the entire preview that's been shown, and it can report back to you. So that's what the Acquia web governance can do. Think of for the WordPress folks that might be here, Yoast. Yoast can do the whole real-time scanning. One key takeaway from that I thought, forgetting his name from Automatic, that talked about how WordPress is adding your brand tone. That could be something that's in here. So it can basically vibe check your entire site. Does your site match your brand tone? Because it's all within this context right here. That's one thing that does make the Drupal Canvas AI also. You have your whole context there. So I'm really excited to see people build more extensions, and maybe there's some people in here like, I know a service that could plug into this, or I could build a product now that could be sold to Drupal sites, or my agency can augment our offerings by building these extensions that go into the editing workflow here. I'm just really excited about that. For some more deeper details, it's all JavaScript based, and it will work kind of like how a Shopify JavaScript extension works, or if you've ever integrated with Atlassian, it'll be kind of that way, where you can embed third-party scripts. So, deep dive there. All right, now we're going to go into the roadmap.
Yeah. So let's see what's next for Drupal Drupal CMS and also Drupal Canvas. So, there are already a number of different features and exciting things that are coming up in future releases of Drupal CMS. And so this provides you with a little bit of context. So, we already have Drupal CMS 2.0 alpha that's been released. Drupal Canvas 1.0 is going to be coming soon. And, obviously, that'll be stable for Drupal CMS 2.0. And we'll kind of look ahead a little bit here. So Drupal CMS 2.0 alpha was tagged at DrupalCon Vienna on October 17th, so it's pretty recent, and it did include Canvas RC2. And so that's why I think you can see, like, based on the demos that we had for this talk, things are pretty stable. There's different issues and things, but it's in good shape.
Yeah, and we were really hoping to have Drupal Canvas tagged yesterday for Dreese's birthday. Yeah, the 19th. But hard problems are hard problems. I think we're down to about 5 stable blockers. So the goal is the end of this month. So that way we have a 1.0. So yeah, it's coming. Goal of November 25th, I believe, is our next milestone. So yeah, that's exciting.
All right, and then you can see here that in terms of what's being included for Drupal CMS 2.0, it does have that 1.0 Drupal Canvas integration once that's stable. And then those site templates that we talked about, the integrations are being worked on. That's all getting resolved. There will be some better documentation. And then for the AI features, that goes back to what I was talking about before, where it's basically taking and creating a unified recipe that will provide some additional features and figuring out, if there are going to be any kind of, like AI providers kind of included to get you onboarded quickly, like with a free tier.
Which, just a quick addendum, I was reading that the Drupal CMS 2.0, I believe they're now aiming for DrupalCon Chicago in March. I know there's some words about maybe January, but I think it's been estimated around DrupalCon Chicago. I think also because of Drupal 11.3 and some other things, just to make sure it's just right.
Nice.
For those who are anxious and want to know. So a little bit more for what's coming next with Drupal Canvas. A lot of that's pretty great, but developer tooling. Not everybody wants to go write React code in a browser or other things. So like I said, we're working on that for a front-end developer experience. More APIs for extensibility. Saw a really cool demo where somebody hooked up their Vue components and then fed them into Drupal, because we only support our base ones, or the SDCs, blocks, and single directory components. There's actually an underlying API that could let people do more, just not finalized yet. So we'll be working on that. The big one and the loudest and largest feedback from DrupalCon Vienna was, what about multilingual? One, because the user interface is not translated and it doesn't have multilingual features in it itself. And then more advanced content workflows. The whole scheduled publishing is great. It is a feature that we've built, but it's not using workspaces under the hood. So there will be more advanced content moderation items that we want to work into there.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, and there's definitely a lot of excitement around Drupal CMS and more ideas to make it easier to use. Not all of this has been formalized, but folks are definitely working on it. So we've already talked a little bit about some of the low-code features that are included, and even some no-code sorts of examples with recipes and site templates. But this can be pushed even further. So for site templates, Drupal CMS 2.0 will include at least those 2 that I showed you. But there's an opportunity to provide a lot more site templates to fit a wide variety of different use cases. So you can think about, almost like from a distribution perspective, about some of those different use cases of what we can target in terms of future templates that will be built. From a high level perspective, it could be like higher ed, healthcare, nonprofits. Those are some quick examples, but things could even be a little bit more targeted in terms of let's say a community college versus a university, and even further than that. There's also a marketplace initiative, which is focusing on exploring the potential for a public marketplace that would exist to browse, share, and contribute site templates. So there's an MVP of the marketplace that's being targeted for going along with what Matt had said with Drupal CMS for DrupalCon Chicago in March. And so that will list up to 15 site templates, both free and paid, as basically a structured experiment to test the idea out.
So we showed some cool things, and if you want to get started, you can try it out in the cloud. If you go to drupal.org/Drupal-CMS/trial, I believe it's on the drupal.org homepage too, you can fill out a form to get a 4-hour trial of Drupal CMS. Mind you, this is Drupal CMS 1.0. So if you at least want to see what's coming down the pipe, or what's here, you can. Or there's also a new community project called Drupal Forge, which allows you to spin up. You go to drupalforge.org. Now I am 85% certain they have a Drupal Canvas demo. They have Drupal CMS 1.0, and I think a Drupal CMS 2.0. So if you want, you can try this out, and I think you can try more of the different offerings and experiment. And then, so if you want to help in, or you want to learn a little bit more, I would say that I should have made the Slack channels a lot larger on there. If you're in Drupal Slack, feel free to reach out. There is the Drupal CMS development channel. There's also a support channel. And then there's the Drupal Canvas channel. Or my favorite is just DM me. You can go ahead, if you can find me, you can DM me, be like, hey, I got this Canvas bug. Or hey, I want to try running Canvas. I can help point you in the right direction.
Yeah, I think at this point we're at ready for any of your questions that you have. If you want to learn a little bit more, or any questions you want to ask. Yeah.
So for Drupal Canvas, when you were demoing content templates, is that tied into view modes at all, or is it a different concept?
Just a brief.
For the recording, the question was about Drupal Canvas and content templates, and they tie into view modes, correct? So yeah, a content template in view mode, or rather, how an entity display is the same as a content template.
Right.
They target view modes.
Okay.
So for each view mode you have in that UI, if you click Add New Content Template, like, what are you working with? Well, actually, right now it only works with notes. So it'd say, pick your content type. You pick article. And it's like, do you want a template full, card, teaser, search, whatever you have? So you can template those. There's a bit of nuance in there, because I believe right now, if you'd have to use views still, like you're still tied to the old, quote unquote, old ways. So views would render that card, but it would be rendered via Canvas. So it would use your template. Think of like using Panelizer back in the day, if you're familiar with that. So that if you use a view to render that view mode, the Canvas template would be used instead of your entity display. Yeah, if that helps translate to new ways.
The JavaScript that you showed in the UI, is that config or is that content? Can we export that with config?
The question is about the code components and if they're config or content, which is a great question. They are configuration. So you can export them. So that way you can write them locally, export them, import them. I think there's probably different discussions on who thinks is the right way. Like, is the right way to manage them via config synchronization? Or is the right way Canvas CLI, so that way they're not governed by the backend developers? I think that will be let's see how it plays out as people work with it. But they are configured. So you can manage it that way, because you may not want the whole Canvas CI workflow. Or you may only want it locally and not uploading to production.
Because it kind of does feel like the old, the PHP, you could stick PHP in Drupal 7, and then you had PHP in the wild.
Yes. The follow-up with that is, it feels like the good old days when we had the PHP mods and shove some PHP scripts into a Drupal site. Yes, I am very well aware, but it is also one that at least people that are building their sites can choose to use code components or not. You don't have to. That's a beautiful part. You don't have to, but if it works for your project's workflow, you can. Like I said, Acquia Source, we've opted only to support code components because we want it to be a SaaS platform that is not back-end written. Like, you don't write back-end code, it empowers like front-end developers and marketers. Whereas if you're building a site, it's like, I will write my SDCs, we will upload them, and we'll let the page builders build what they need and not let them just write React code and then they have a typo and they break their page and now they call us. So there's trade-offs between both.
Does Canvas support paragraphs at all?
Ooh, the question is, does Canvas support paragraphs? I am not the right one to answer this question, but I know that there's a concerted effort to make sure that no one is left behind if they do paragraphs, if they do layout builder, if they do display suite. That is I think one of the best things with this initiative when it was announced back in DrupalCon Atlanta, I can't remember. There was a big effort, not just for Acquia to go build something. We had a lot of requirements, but when it was DrupalCon, we actually sat down at the table with stakeholders in the community because we know it's an audacious goal. But paragraphs is being considered. I don't know who's working on it, but I know it is a known thing. Like people need to migrate from it, or not even migrate. I'll take that back because some people might be upset about that. But like how to use my paragraphs within Canvas.
Mhm.
I'm just curious, like 2 and 3, like the UI. Is like the UI finished, or is that sort of doing UX testing? Because I was looking at 1 and I was like, as a developer, I can use this. But like to hand this to a content editor, there was a heck of a lot going on.
The question was about the UI and how finalized it is. Things are in motion. Like there is feedback. Especially the left sidebar, has gone through some iterations. Because before there was one panel that showed like your library, your layers, and all these things, and people were misclicking. And then we got the managed library and then the layers. But I've ended up, there's been a lot of people that have ended up in like managed library. Like, why can't I drag this onto the page? There's a few items there, but the overall look and feel has been built by designers based off other page builders. So there are things that will be improved, but the general feel of it has been vetted and gone through user testing. But obviously there's going to be nuance, and that's why we need to hit 1.0 and get it in front of people, so that way it can be fun. Did you say there's another question, or was it just mostly that?
No, I'm just curious
Okay.
to see where it's going.
Yeah. I'll say it's always evolving. It's not going to be not like the days when we got layout builder and core, and then innovation kind of stopped. It's going to keep going, and it will receive feedback. And like I said, there's a lot of other people at the table that will be put in front of their customers and giving that kind of feedback as well.
Yeah, I'm kind of wondering if we might someday sort of have a training wheels UI for it, where like most things are hidden and you can just kind of edit a component and move it up or down, but like you don't really know what you're doing.
Yeah.
You're just the content editor.
So for the recording, the feedback was like if there was like a more lockdown version. So like a content editor can't completely mess up a page, which actually that is something for content templates where you can lock in the template itself. So you would be able to create the base template and we would lock components in, and you could only edit props. Those are all things that are coming. So there is a lot more. Because like I said, right now, content templates only support nodes. There's other entity types in the Drupal ecosystem. So it will evolve, but I'm actually very proud of the project that has taken a very MVP approach. Like we're going to build and ship and get feedback.
Mhm.
Yes, it will be growing. And like I don't know that full roadmap because I was honestly focused a lot more on Acquia Source,
Right.
which used Canvas, and I worked on it that way. But now I'm actually more on that team, so I'll be able to know more about that.
Is Acquia Source like a monthly subscription, or is it like an annual subscription like other Acquia products?
That is an annual subscription. And if you want to know more, I can direct you to people who know.
Yeah, and the question was about the
Oh,
pricing
sorry.
model for Acquia Source.
Sorry.
Yeah. Well, it's- yeah, go ahead.
Okay, can Canvas be incorporated into if you showed it on a new site, obviously. So if we have, say, Sitezilla that has some layout builder in it, and we would like to transition, is that a
The question is, can you take Drupal Canvas and bring it into your existing site? Yes, you can. I would say that's one of we keep talking about new sites because it's not stable, so it's always been a throwaway. And I think once we have integrations, like if you I use Layout Builder, that they can migrate over, then I would say it. But I mean, nothing could stop you from bringing it into your existing site. For the request and anecdotes, we actually chatted about how I have my wife's website. and it is not themed. It is a Drupal site that does Drupal commerce, but it doesn't look like anything. Once we hit 1.0, I'm bringing Canvas into that site and building the pages. So like that's an existing site that's like 4 years old. I'm gonna plug it in there and I'm gonna get to town on it and actually making it look nice.
Yeah, and I think it also goes back to that comment about people not getting left behind. So even if you're using other things in Layout Builder, you know, there's thought being put into that process so that you could get going with it, you know, on an existing site.
Yeah. Because the other thing I think about, like you spend a lot of time on your existing site greatly configuring your entity view display and putting those fields in spot, field group, and nesting things in your twig template. What does that look like if you just slap Canvas in it? Like those are questions that will be figured out and figure like, well, maybe, or that's where you just keep working on it. You never publish it till you're happy with it. Maybe that's the approach, or there is a way to be able to transform that or transpile it somehow. So, any other questions?
All right. Yeah. Thanks, everybody.
All right.
Thank
Thank
you.
you.